The Annapurna Upanishad, presented by Swayam Prakash Sharma, Part 4. In this part, which concludes Chapter 4 of the Upanishad, the sage Ribhu continues with his discourse about liberation without the body. The Upanishad. Ribhu continues, having this certain knowledge that I am the ground of the whole world, that I am the solid truth and knowledge, the sage gets rid of all sorrow. Those persons whose flaws, whose defects have been reduced, realize that their own bodies are the witness of all, whose essence is the all luminous being. This is not realized by those others who are encompassed and surrounded by Maya. Knowing the Almighty Brahm alone, the intelligent Brahman builds up wisdom. He does not dwell on a multitude of words that only make for verbal tiredness, that only make for verbal fatigue. Having mastered the knowledge of Brahm, a person should live in a state of childlikeness alone. He should live only like a child. Then, having mastered Brahm knowledge and the state of childlikeness, the sage possesses the self. The sage possesses the Atma. Know the elemental body as the seed of the creeper of sansar, as the seed of worldly mundane life, of transmigratory life, with its huge sprouts, both good and evil, that have their potentialities latent in the body. Of this body, the seed is the mind that conforms to cravings. It is a sheath of both active and of the quiet, inactive moods. It is a casket. It is a box that holds the gem of pain. The tree of the mind has two seeds. One is the vibration of the vital breath, and the other is the obstinate imagination. When the vital breath that has been aroused by nervous contacts vibrates, then the mind is transformed at once into a mass of sensations. That all-pervading consciousness is aroused by the vibration of the vital breath. It is better to suppress the awareness of objects, as the vibration of vital breath is less harmful. For the mental peace, the yogi suppresses vital breaths through breath control, through meditation, and through practices dictated by reasoning. Know the supreme cause that yields the fruit of mental peace. It is the joyful self-abidance of cognition that is known as breath control. And what is latent impression? Latent impression is said to consist in seizing of an object by the force of entrenched imagination, in spite of all considerations of cause and effect, rejecting everything and imagining nothing, either to be chosen or to be rejected. The mind remains in itself. That is, now the mind is unborn. Being continuously free from latent impressions, when the mind stops thinking, then there arises the mindlessness that yields supreme tranquility. And when no aspect of the objects of the world is imagined by the mind, then how can the mind be born in the empty sky of the heart? The conception of a thing's absence is based on that very thing's non-being. Therefore, the condition of mindlessness is posited with reference to the object as such. The mind that abides coolly in itself after the inner reflection of after the inner rejection of all objects, though in modifications, is still held to have the form of non-being. They indeed are deemed to be liberated in life, whose latent, unenjoyed impressions are like the fried seeds, the seeds that are incapable of sprouting anymore. Their minds have acquired the form of sattva. They have gone beyond the further shore of knowledge. They are said to be mindless. With the fall of their bodies, when they die, they become like the sky. Due to the rejection of the objects, with the vibrations of the vital breaths and the latent impressions swiftly perish, just as a tree perishes when its root is cut off. In this state of the process of knowing whatever appears, either as something that has been experienced before or as something altogether new, they all must be meticulously wiped out by everyone whose knowledge is sound. The vast transmigratory life that a person experiences, that life is due to the failure to obliterate them. On the contrary, liberation is held to be just the obliteration of both the past experiences as well as all that is altogether new. Rejecting all pleasures and all cognitions, all acts and processes of knowledge, be immaterial, be spiritual. Knowledge depends on the states of objects. One who does not have any knowledge is non-cognitive. So even though he were to perform 100 actions, he is held to be non-inert. That person is said to be liberated in life. The clear sphere of whose emotions is not in the least affected by objects. His knowledge is spiritual. Due to the absence of latent impressions in the mind, when nothing is imagined, the mind remains steady, with cognitions similar to those of children and the dumb. Now the sage is no longer affected, for he resorts to the vast, intelligent, not knowing in the objective mode. Through the concentration of modellessness, rejecting all latent impressions, he becomes one with it. In the infinite Brahm, even that is dissolved. Though standing, though walking, though touching, though smelling, etc., the intelligent sage, who is devoid of all clingings, he gets rid of fluctuating pleasures and the knowledge of the particulars. He is at peace. A shoreless ocean of excellences. He crosses the sea of sufferings because he resorts to this vision even in the middle of troubled activities. Devoid of all particular, the sinless pure being is one vast essence. He is that Brahm that is held to be the abode of immutable existence. Rejecting all distinctions such as the being of time, such as the being of instants, such as the being of entities, be solely devoted to pure being. Contemplate only the one unqualified universal being. Be omnipresent, be full, be serenely blissful, and fill up all space. The pristine, inconceivable status without beginning, without end. that remains at the fringe of universal being is causeless. Cognitions dissolve there. It remains beyond the possibility of doubts. A person who reaches that state, he does not return to pain anymore. It is the cause of all beings. It itself has no cause. It is the quintessence of all essences. Nothing is more quintessential than that Brahm. In that vast mirror of intelligence, in that Brahm, all these perceptions of objects are reflected, just as trees on the banks of a lake are reflected in the lake. That is the pure, unobscured truth of the self. That is the pure, unobscured truth of the Atma. And when that truth is known, then the mind is tranquilized, then the mind becomes tranquil. Applying the remedies mentioned by me for the causes of suffering, that supreme status is attained. O knower of truth, Nigad, if by manly endeavor you forcefully abstain from latent impressions and establish yourself all alone in that indestructible status, even for a moment, at the very summit of universal being, well, at that very moment, you achieve it all right. Or, if you diligently cultivate the status of universal being, that status you will attain with somewhat greater effort. O Nigad, if you stay meditating on the principle of cognition, through still greater effort, you will win that exalted status. O sir, if you strive to shed latent impressions, know that till the mind is dissolved, the latent impressions too are not attenuated. As long as the latent impressions are not attenuated, the mind is not tranquilized. And as long as the knowledge of truth is not won, from where can mental tranquility come? And as long as the mind is not tranquil, truth cannot be known. And as long as the knowledge of truth is not won, from where can mental tranquility come? Knowledge of truth, the mind's destruction, attenuation of latent impressions, these mutually cause one another. They are indeed hard to accomplish. Therefore, fling the desire for enjoyment far away from you and cultivate the triad of knowledge, of truth, the triad of knowledge of truth, the mind's destruction, and attenuation of latent impressions. O high-souled Nigad, when a person seeks for long and simultaneously the attenuation of latent impressions, the knowledge of truth, and the destruction of the mind, then these three are held to prove effective. By means of these three cultivated properly, the tough sprouts of the heart, the tough knots of the heart are shattered without leaving any residue whatsoever, in the same way that the lotus threads are shattered without leaving any residue whatsoever when the lotus stalks are crushed. The knower of truth knows that breath control corresponds to eschewal of latent impressions, to the shunning of latent impressions. Therefore, also practice this latter too by breath control. By eschewing, by shunning latent impressions, the mind ceases to be. Also, by obstructing the vibrations of the vital breaths, it does so. Do one or the other. Do as you choose. By the steady practice of breath control, by the exercise of reasoning taught by the teacher, by the practice of yogic postures, and by the regulation of diet, the vibration of the breath is obstructed. Through behavior without attachment, through avoidance of contemplation of birth and empirical life, and through the perception of the decline of the body, the latent impressions cease to operate. The vibration of the vital breath is indeed the same as the mind's vibration. The intelligent man should strive hard to conquer the vibration of the vital breaths. Without sound reasoning, it is impossible to conquer the mind. Resorting to pure cognition and rejecting attachment, be steady. O great souled Nigad, abide solely in the heart, contemplating without conceptions the pristine, the single, the matchless, and indubitable status of cognition without objects, but perform actions having achieved the status of inactivity in the blaze of tranquil glory. The person who, through reasoning, in however small a measure, has slain his mind, he has achieved the object of his life. Yes, the person who has slain his mind, he has achieved the object of his life. This concludes part 4 of Annapurna Upanishad. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Om.